One should know that both terms, Al-Qur'an and Kalam of Allah, speech of Allah, have two meanings. If this were not understood, one would not understand what some scholars said: the Qur'an is the speech of God and it is not created. One might think it means that the revealed expressions are not created because the only thing he knows from the word Al-Qur'an is the revealed book, which is misguidance, if he believes that. Many scholars expressed this double meaning in one statement. Many scholars expressed this double or dual meaning in one statement. At-Tahawi perhaps did it most exquisitely when he said, وَإِنَّ الْقُرْآنَ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ مِنْهُ بَدَى بِلَا كَيْفِيَّةٍ قَوْلًا. The Qur'an is surely the speech of Allah. From him it appeared without a manner of being, as a saying. So, in that one statement, At-Tahawi is giving a double meaning. Anyone who's familiar with poetry easily understands double meanings. You take a statement, when you say that statement, it means something. If you say the same statement, you can just interpret the same statement with its same words and it means something else, without a contradiction between the two meanings. The first meaning is the eternal attribute that is not a letter or a sound. The first meaning of the word Al-Qur'an. It is not Arabic nor any other language. Hence, the Qur'an as the eternal attribute is not created because of the impossibility of created attributes for Allah. Using the term Qur'an to express this meaning is a real religious usage. Haqiqah Shar'iyyah. As well as a real linguistic usage. Haqiqah Lughawiyah. Sheikh Samir, for the word Haqiqah, he, from what I have seen, all that I've seen from him, he prefers to translate it as real. I usually prefer to translate it as literal. But then one day, Allah made me understand why Sheikh Samir was saying that. So someone might say, when you call the Qur'an the attribute of Allah and say that it's uncreated and it's not letters and sounds, the word Qur'an in particular, someone might ask, are you saying that this is what it means in the language? Really? It really means that in the language? Or are you saying it doesn't really mean that in the language, but it does mean that really in the religion? Religiously, it really means that, but in the language, it doesn't really mean that. Or vice versa, or what? So here, this sentence is like an answer to a supposed question. So the answer is, using the term Qur'an to express this meaning is really a religious usage. It's truly, literally, it is a real religious usage. It means that really in religion. The attribute that's not created and it's not letters or sounds. And it also means that really in the language too. Meaning, when we use the word Al-Qur'an to refer to Allah's uncreated speech, we are really using the language in a literal sense there. We're not bringing some convention into the language or making a figure of speech or determining for ourselves some terminology. You know how the Hanafis, they said there's a difference between fard and wajib? Some of the Shafi'is said, how are you going to, what kind of a difference is that? You just making up stuff? You just want to take a word and give it a definition? You say fard means this and wajib means that? Min ayna kayf? So we're not doing that. here when we say Al-Qur'an really means in the language, is really applicable in the language to the uncreated speech of God. The second meaning is the expressions revealed as a miracle and were not authored by a human, genie, or angel. What was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is called the speech of Allah, although it is in Arabic. Using the Quran, the word Al-Qur'an, in this context is a real religious usage. It really means that in the religion, the revealed expressions. Only in religion it means that, not in the language. The expressions and writings are undoubtedly created. Our tongues, sounds, paper, ink, and other things are created. Hence, when we say that the Quran is the speech of Allah, we do not mean that He uttered the Quran as we do when we recite it. If the Quran were mentioned with an indication of being created, like to say, I recited some of the Quran, or half of the Quran, or a third of the Quran, then it is in reference to the created recitation and the created book of the Quran. So that's a helpful statement there. Meaning, what if one of our brothers, one of our very, very careful brothers or sisters, who might even maybe suffer from some waswas sometimes, what if he heard you say, the Quran, I memorized half of the Quran. Then he might say to you, but don't say it that way because Quran can refer to the speech of Allah that's not created. You wouldn't want to say that's half. So what would you say to that one? To make it easy for that one. You say, no, it's permissible because Quran has two usages. So when you use it in a way that means it's created, then you've directed it in that way. Then you've taken it and you've directed it in that way. That's permissible. You can say it that way. So you can say, I recited some of the Quran. I memorized half of the Quran, for example. It's permissible. In that case, when you're using the Quran in a context of something created, then it means the created book of the Quran. Furthermore, the word Quran is used to mean, one, qira'ah, recitation or recital, which is the act of the slave. Yeah, like the saying of Allah, wa Qur'an al-Fajr, the Quran of Fajr, meaning the recitation of. So the word Quran is used to mean qira'ah, recitation or recital, which is the act of the slave, and to mean maqru', what's recited, which is the attribute itself. But as confirmed by the created expressions that refer to it. Just as dhikr, mentioning, is the act of the slave, and the madhkur, the mentioned, is Allah Himself. That's an important case to assimilate into your mind, assimilate it into your heart. Let your heart absorb that case there. The maqru', what's recited, might rush to your mind that maqru' is created. The maqru' is created. But no, the maqru' is not created. The maqru' is not created. What's recited. So then someone say, what? How's that? How's what's recited is not created? So very easy. Just go to the example of dhikr. Say, just like dhikr. The dhikr, that's the act of the slave, but the madhkur, the mentioned, is not created. So like the mentioned, the madhkur is not created. That's Allah Himself. The maqru', What's recited is not created. But when we refer to the eternal attribute as maqru, recited, there is still, though, a hint to something created. There's still a reference to something created, which is those created words that refer to that uncreated thing being mentioned. Is that clear? Let me know if that's not clear. I think it's clear. And thirdly, the word Qur'an can refer to the mushaf. Like the hadith, لا تسافروا بالقرآن إلى أرض العدو. Do not travel to the land of the enemy with the Qur'an. Or, if you want to follow the word order, do not travel with the Qur'an to the land of the enemy. I try to follow that word order because, like we already said, if you want to understand the Arabic, really, you need what came in the old Arabic. You want to observe everything about it, even the word order, even what's not said. You want to consider it. Sometimes when we translate, it's a negligible difference to not follow the word order. Negligible. But I try to. He prohibited that, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited that traveling with the mushaf to the land of the enemy to protect it from being degraded. And Nasafi expressed that double meaning in a simpler way. The double meaning that At-Tahawi said, how did we describe that? Exquisitely. What At-Tahawi said in an exquisite way, in a fancy way. And Nasafi said it in a simpler way. He did it too, but in a simpler way. He said, وَالْقُرْآنُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. The Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah. وَهُوَ مَكْتُوبٌ فِي مَصَاحِفِنَا. It is written in our scriptures. مَحْفُوظٌ فِي قُلُوبِنَا. Memorized by our hearts. مَقْرُوءٌ بِأَلْسِنَتِنَا. Recited by our tongues. مَسْمُوعٌ بِآذَانِنَا. And heard by our ears. غَيْرُ حَالٍ فِيهَا. Not dwelling in any of those. So who's paying attention and understanding here sees how he's going back and forth. There's a double meaning in there. Therefore, the Qur'an, by its actual and literal consideration, is an attribute confirmed for the self of Allah. By the mental consideration, it is memorized in our hearts. By the uttered consideration, it is recited by our tongues. And by the written consideration, is documented in our scriptures. Its reality does not dwell in our hearts or our tongues or our scriptures or any other thing. Or else that would necessitate the attribute of the Creator being confirmed for the creation. Then we would be believing like Christians, who said that the attribute of God was in Jesus. The way Wahhabis believe that the Qur'an that we recite is the eternal attribute of Allah, their belief is like Christian belief, that the attribute of God went to Jesus. What is truly confirmed for the reciter of the Qur'an is what refers to the attribute. And that reference, which is the created words, is called the speech of Allah because of what it refers to. As Allah said, فَأَجِرْهُ حَتَّى يَسْمَعَ كَلَامَ اللَّهِ. Then grant him safety so that he may hear the speech of Allah. وَسُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ.